Thank you very much, Bill, for your leadership and for everyone in this room, and to be with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and Karen and so many people that are doing amazing things. I want to start by just saying I don't claim to have any gifted insight. I don't claim to have any of the answers of the world's problems. I've been doing this for almost 40 years. I've come to look at the world in a certain way, and with a bit of vulnerability, I'm going to share that with you. But if I ever sound presumptuous, like I'm telling you this is the way you must be, that's not where I'm coming from at all. It works for me, and I want to share it with you. My premise is, let's imagine if tomorrow morning every human being in the world said, I get it. I'm only going to use sustainable materials. Every retailer said, we're only going to sell sustainable materials. Every manufacturer said, we're only going to make them. By my estimation, we got maybe 10%. 90% of the technologies haven't been invented yet. There's a few things coming along, but at least 85%, we have no alternatives. So people talk about substitutions and alternatives, but from my perspective, they don't exist. And so all the laws and all the policies in the world can't force people to do something that doesn't exist. So we need all this other stuff going on. But to me, my little role in this is the biggest barrier from my perspective is actually invention. How do we stop moving faster? How do we get more things happening? And so I go to a lot of these conferences, and rightly so, a lot of people are talking about why we need it. We learn about all the problems that are going on, and then there's a lot of people talking about what we should do, how we should characterize, how we should report. And the why is important, and the what is important. But what we really need to focus on as well is the how. How are we going to change these things? And that's the little place that green chemistry fits in all of this. So the way that I look at it is we take natural resources and we extract simple materials, right? We got mining, we've got agriculture, we've got loud equipment, we've got air, we've got petroleum, fossil deposits, and water. And we take and we accumulate all of these simple materials. Then we do chemistry, and we turn the simple materials into complicated materials. We'll take the ores and we'll make stainless steel. We'll take a bunch of these natural resources and we'll turn them into something maybe like a glue. Or we'll take a bunch of materials and we'll turn them into like a blue dye. Or we'll take a bunch of materials and we'll make all these transformations and we'll make a polymer. All right, so we've taken the natural resources, we've taken the simple materials, converted them into more complicated materials. Now let's put them together and manufacture products. All right, so we're going to take the blue dye and the polymer and put it together and maybe do some thermoforming. We'll take the metal, we'll ablate and cut out some pieces. We'll take the adhesive and we'll make a pair of scissors. Look at all the transformations. And I left out a whole bunch of them just to make a simple pair of scissors. All right? Now, we've made our products. The best we could do, the most noble thing we could do, is to keep that product in use and reuse for as long as possible. If I'm using my grandfather's scissors and my grandchild uses my scissors, that would be cool. But we have this thing called entropy. And inevitably, something's going to go wrong. That's the laws of thermodynamics. So then what we want to do is, as much as possible, can we mechanically recycle the thing? Can we take the scissors, extract out the glue, melt out the plastic, melt out the metal, and then put this all back together again? Wouldn't that be amazing? But then there's this thing called entropy. Every time we melt a polymer, every time we grind a fiber, we actually break it up and we lose the material's properties because of entropy. So although we want to do this, the vast majority of technologies haven't been invented yet. We don't know how. We want to do it, but we don't know how. All right? So we want to take a multi-layer material, separate it out so that we can reuse it. Right now, we don't have the technology to do this. Even something as simple as paper. When we repulp paper, we break up the fibers and we can only recycle paper once or 2 times before it. We don't know how. Doesn't mean we can't. We just don't know how yet. All right, so then we've done all the mechanical recycling we can. Then can we reprocess the molecules? All right? I'm not talking about lighting them on fire and burning them. I'm talking about repurposing these materials. This is where I spend most of my life, is in this circle here. I call it the materials metabolism. All right? Right now, wouldn't it be amazing if we could take these molecules and revert back? We don't know how. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could take these materials, revert back to the starting materials? We don't know how. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could take the polymer, depolymerize it? We don't know how. How can we change this? All right, so let's imagine, this is my dream, this is my vision, all right? Let's imagine tonight we all hang out. We have some wine, some cheese, anyways, we have wine, cheese, and bread. What happens as we're sitting, talking, and eating wine, cheese, and bread? Well, in our body, we're turning proteins into amino acids. We're turning carbohydrates into sugars. We're turning lipids into fatty acids. But that's not all. As we're chatting, sipping, drinking, chewing, swallowing, in the same cells, in the same place in our bodies, we're growing hair. We're growing fingernails. We're growing blood cells. Nature doesn't separate the construction and the deconstruction at the molecular level. Nature does it in the same place. So my dream is, right now we go to a building, we say, oh, they're manufacturing a product. Then we get in our car, we drive somewhere, we go, ooh, they're recycling. The day you go to a building and you can't tell, are they manufacturing or are they recycling? Boom, we're done. We've created a sustainable world. But right now, that's not where we are. We can't do it yet. And then finally, we want some things just to revert back to nature and to degrade back into natural resources. Can you imagine if we could take all these materials, have them turn into CO2, grow agriculture? Right now, 95% of the technologies don't biodegrade. We don't know how. So finally, we want to maintain stable ecosystems. We want to figure out some way to do this. Now, the point of this diagram here is that if you look clockwise, that's the human-built world. And if you look counterclockwise, it's returning things back to nature. But there are 5 independent cycles, and we have to look at the technology, look at the hierarchy of the molecules, and figure out what is most appropriate. We can do this. And the overlap on the bottom is an algorithmical assessment of sustainability. We can't possibly have 0 impact, but if we're cognizant of that, we can start making a difference, all right? But I'm a member of the Club of Rome, and we did the limits to growth back in the 70s. One of my personal heroes is Donella Meadows, who wrote the first book, Systems Thinking. We lost her a long time ago, but one of the most important aspects of systems thinking that we often leave out is humility. No one is smart enough to get everything right. So even if we had all of this, well, there's still going to be toxics and wastes that we got to worry about. So could we imagine a world where we invent ways to capture the waste, capture it, reuse it, and make new products? Wouldn't that be cool? We don't really know how to do that yet. 200 years of modern chemistry, and what we've mostly focused on was making stuff, unidirectional. It's not that we can't do it, we just haven't. But if we start imagining a world where we can, imagine if we could reinvent all of this in the future. I really, really believe it can be done. Now, I just talked about a pair of scissors. Can you imagine how complicated like a solar panel or a printed circuit board or an automobile would be? It's a lot of work. But we can connect our materials and products to the UN SDGs. It's just going to take logic. And that's why way back in 1991, man, am I old, Paul Anastas and I realized that the world didn't need a philosophy. The world needed a mechanistic science. What does mechanistic sciences have? They have journals and textbooks and classes and conferences and workshops, and that is the birth of the field of green chemistry. Okay, and so I'm still amazed. This book is really old, all right? And people come up to me and go, well, John, what is green chemistry? And I never know how to answer that, because there's a book. There's a chapter in the book. What is green chemistry? All right, and then there's a definition, all right, and then it's expanded to 12 principles. You won't see any issues on this. You won't see climate change. You won't see, ocean plastics. You won't see things like that, because the point is that this is about the mechanisms that underpin it. So every time we discover a new problem, we don't need a new principle. This is fundamental mechanistic chemistry. And I've just been so honored and thrilled. This book has been translated into over 15 different languages. I've been to 93 countries meeting kings and queens and presidents and prime ministers. I'm just a name on a book. The thousands of people in this world that are doing this, I'm just a convenient figurehead, but I'm really optimistic. But for this to work, it's got to be more than just having things be more sustainable. People need to use these products. They have to have excellent performance, and they have to have excellent cost. We can't have just wealthy people affording the sustainable materials. So if we have a technology that works better, costs better, and oh, by the way, is better for human health and the environment, who's going to push back? So we must assume that the problem is we haven't invented it yet. And here is the thing that keeps me awake at night that I really am worried about. I got my PhD in 1988. All right, in 1988, 12% of invested R&D made its way to commercial products. Now in 2026, we're below 2%. This isn't because of science. This isn't because of the market. Our decision-making processes in industry and the investment community is failing 95% of the time. We're not calling the right shots. We can do it, but something's going wrong. And what I've done is I made this graph, and the x-axis is the time and resources to make a product. The y-axis is the amount of knowledge generated. Research is bumpy. You can't say next Tuesday at 2:30 I'll invent something. You go in the lab, you try something, doesn't work, you try something, all of a sudden eureka, and then you try it and eureka. And then once you've done all the eurekas, then you can develop your product. And here's the thing. Back in 1988, I would argue that academia did a lot of research and a little bit of development, and industry did a lot of development and a little bit of research. But now fast forward, when I was a graduate student, it would have been considered the punchline of a joke for someone to say, for you to get a PhD, you must publish X number of papers in journals. We would have said, wait a minute, you can't quantify research by number of journal articles. Some projects are long, some projects are short. Now that is the metric of success, not what you do, not how much you do, what impact it is, just how many papers did you publish? And so now you do methyl, you do ethyl, you do propyl, we'll get 3 papers out. Academia is no longer doing the advanced long stuff. At the same time, industry used to be run by engineers and scientists. Now they're run by finance people who see R&D as a cost center. At the very moment we need better, we're doing worse. Thank heavens there are organizations that are facilitating entrepreneurship. All right, that is our saving path. What we're doing now isn't good enough. Okay, right now we're celebrating starting companies. We need to shift to celebrate products on the market because we're siphoning a lot of resources and starting the companies. We need to follow through and make sure these companies actually do something other than start. And so, but I am really, really excited about I believe it can be done. So in 2007, my wife and I, we were professors at UMass. I was a full tenured professor of chemistry, full tenured professor of engineering, and I did what no sane person would ever do. I resigned from academia. Every time a company wanted to work with me, the university had unrealistic expectations. And so my wife and I, we left. the comfort of full tenured professorships. Amy started a nonprofit called Beyond Benign, and I started Technology Greenhouse, an invention factory. It's a little lab in Boston and has a bunch of amazing people. But here's the thing. People say, oh, green chemistry, industry's really hard. It's hard to get products to market. My little team, in less than 15 years, we've filed 370 patents. We have invented for over 60 companies. I never name a company that I've invented for. These ones issued press releases. Oh, we worked with John Warner, so I can put them up here. And we've created new companies. We have a pharmaceutical company. We have a cosmetic company. We have an asphalt company. We have a solar energy company. We have a services company. We have a biomaterials company. Have a water harvesting company. We have a flow reactor company. We have a pharmaceutical services company. I don't think I'm going slow. All right? And that is the secret. The secret here is that green chemistry obviously has a moral and ethical component to it, but it's also an accelerant to commercialization and market, because the best time to impact the success of a product is the moment you're inventing it. All right? After it's invented, now it's all cost. All right? And so I've talked about why, I've talked about what, I've talked about how. The most important is who. All right? And this is why this here worries me. We have so much more. And I want to play the violin. All right? You can yell at me and say, John, learn the violin. You can tell me how happy I'll be if I play the violin. But if I don't have a teacher, if I don't have a mentor teaching me how to play the violin, I'm not going to play the violin. It's the same thing with sustainability. A scientist can't just wake up in the morning and say, I want to do this. We're not learning it in our universities. We need to change the curriculum of our universities to teach people how. So my personal hero, and I'll try not to get emotional here, but I end up doing this, is my wife, Dr. Amy Cannon, has a tiny nonprofit group called Beyond Benign. Now, Beyond Benign, if we're going to change the world, we got to go beyond just being benign. It has to have excellent performance, excellent cost. The only way we're going to do this is by changing how we teach. And Beyond Benign asks colleges and universities to sign a commitment saying that they will change the required curriculum, not an elective, not a nice to have, but the required curriculum. And amazing, Amy and her group, there are now, this is outdated, there are 300 colleges and universities around the world who have signed this commitment. That is where the future is. Imagine a student, 21-year-old student, working in the lab, pouring beakers and flasks. And they invent some technology, and millions of people they will never meet are no longer exposed to a hazardous material. An environmental system is being protected because they invented something better. What could be more valuable? So we need that next generation. They want to do it. They just don't know how. If we can put those pieces together, step back and watch them change the world. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And I want to open it up here for discussion. Our roundtable participants here, if you have any comments to make, if any of the folks in the room have comments, questions. Randy, yes? Did you raise your hand? Oh, you were just waving. Okay, Heidi.
I came in late, but I would love to know how to help you get into other universities. I have some connections with universities in California, and I would love to make sure that you're...
That's super important, and that's actually Beyond Benign, the website, beyondbenign.org. If I can go back to my next to the last slide there, but that is where, or just reach out to me and I can connect you, because what they do is they have over 350 lesson plans free. All right, so if a university says, well, we want to do this, but none of our faculty have ever been trained, well, UC Berkeley does it one way, Stockholm University does it another way, Monash in Australia does it another way. They share their best practices, so if a new university wants to do it, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They just have to share, and then hopefully they come up with a new way of doing it and share it. So beyondbenign.org is the organization, and just if you belong to a university, if you're graduated from a university, if you're affiliated, say, have you signed the green chemistry commitment? And if not, why not? Okay, yeah. Hi.
John, is this applicable to high schools potentially?
Yes, it's super important. So we also have, I wish I had hours on the K through 12 is critical, because if a child, the statistics show that if a child by 12 years old isn't interested in science, they don't have to say, I want to be a scientist, but if they haven't had some positive experience, they never will. So we need to let them know that the world has a ton of problems. Drives me crazy. What do we do when we want to inspire someone in chemistry? Someone comes in and lights a little fire up in front of, ooh. The kids' cell phones have more interesting explosions than that. That's not, but telling them that they can participate in making the world a better place. Yes, so we have many, many programs around the world in K through 12, and need all the help with that too. Thank you.
I just had two questions.
Yeah.
First was with the companies that you showed,
Yeah.
do they reach out to you for that, or are you actively reaching out to companies to help?
So I am an entirely accidental person. I have no sales, I have no marketing. I have never once called a company asking, can I work with you? I get 700 emails a day from people saying, do you know how to do this? Can you help me do this? Imagine if I had the resources to, to actually try. Yeah, so no. So I just am completely passive. I wait till someone, because I can't keep up with the people asking for my help. I'm not going to spend any minute trying to convince somebody. So yes, and I'm always looking to learn more about the problems. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So the other question I had is with Beyond Benign, is there a mechanism, could it be applied to larger corporations? In particular, I'm thinking of manufacturers, kind of where I come from. So the Foxcons of the world, Wistrons,
Please.
these big ones.
Apple is a supporter, Dow is a supporter, Millipore Sigma is a supporter, and what they do is oftentimes they will have, they essentially, and I didn't have time to talk about, we always talk about the materials ecology, where molecules go and how they're in circles. What we forget is there's also what I call the intellectual ecology. We have a pipeline of people. Children become students, students become practitioners, and so I work on the materials ecology, Amy in Beyond Benign works on the intellectual ecology, and employers need good employees, and this is cultivating that to get passionate people that, green chemistry isn't doing sustainability instead. You still have to be an excellent inventor, know how to make products, and this is an add-on. And so yes, companies can have K through 12 classes, teacher education, universities. There's many, many mechanisms to do that. And it also helps train the employees too, which isn't a bad thing.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yep. Back here.
Hi.
Hi, I'm David Fruit. You're amazing. I wish the progress.
Thank you.
And so my question is, on that gap between academia and corporation, and it seems to be filled in with private equity and venture capital. Now, much of my observation is that space is after fast returns.
Yes.
And my question is, what are your thoughts on is there a collection of these that are a little bit more willing to take longer to achieve?
Unfortunately, no. Whenever you hear about some massive amount of funding that's been made available, they always talk about, and it has to happen fast. We need to have it implemented because we're not going to waste money if it's not implemented. And by definition, if we over-index on implementation, that means don't invent anything, only do stuff we already know how to do, and 90% of the stuff hasn't been invented yet. So somewhere, somehow, there has to be patient capital that is willing to wait 5 or 6 years to get stuff going. And unfortunately, If you know of where that is, I need it desperately because everything is incremental. We need to find some way to do this longer and be a little bit more patient with this, because I can list so many organizations, and we talk about shovel ready. So shovel ready is the opposite of innovation. So don't invent something, just do what you can do, and we'll do it more. That presupposes that we already know what to do.
Yeah.
And we don't.
Let me ask two questions, and then looking for others as well. But patent law has been evolving, and patent cases and patent gaming and so on, that makes it difficult for individual inventors to actually get their inventions used, rather than funneled through a system that may want to knock off things that might disrupt existing markets. How do we need to change? How do we need to change patent laws? Then I have a follow-up.
So disclosure, who am I? I'm just me, but I have a very strong opinion. In the pharmaceutical industry, we have what's called the orphan drug program, that if a company works with a drug that they're not going to recover their investment, there's some trade-off somewhere. Right now, the problem with patent law, I meet so many people in academia who say, oh, I'm not going to patent, I want to give it to society, and they publish a paper. The problem with that model is that if an investor wants to invest, they want to know that they can protect that investment. So if someone publishes a paper and doesn't file a patent, they haven't given it to society, they've robbed society of it, because you can't file a patent after it's publicly disclosed. I would love to change patent law that if there's something important for society, we can retroactively patent something that already has been publicly disclosed.
So that there is a driver for
words are coming out of my mouth that I have no right talking about, but people who know law, if there was a way to change that, we could change so much. But right now, a patent an unpatented technology can't survive.
Have a question right here? There. Sorry.
A couple of questions. One is I'm thinking about the students kind of thing, and CTE is the career and technical education, and I'm wondering if it's, like you said, there's the basic stuff too, and then there's green chemistry. Is it realistic to say that there could be a green chemistry kind of CTE offering in schools?
Yes, we absolutely, and we need to take a deep breath. Again, I feel this publication metrics has really hurt. For a product to be successful on the market, it must have excellent performance, excellent cost, address sustainability issues, and address legal aspects. No university, no school teaches anything about legal, anything about sustainable, anything about cost, and the only thing that's described about performance is, did you get it published in a journal? We need to change all of that. Now, the students come in passionately wanting to see an impact in the world, and that gets turned into the impact factor of a journal.
Yeah.
That's not changing the world.
Well, I'm talking about high school level. Though,
absolutely, and that's exactly.
I mean, it could be, so it could be, it's not too much. Okay.
Yeah, and so, yes, to get it into and what we have shown, that when you put a sustainability context to training, it changes everything. If you're learning geometry and you say, here is a triangle, here's another triangle, what's the difference in these triangles? Okay, but if you say, here's the Brazilian rainforest in 1880 and here's the Brazilian rainforest now, draw a triangle, what's the difference? Not only does the student care more, the teacher cares more, their peers are talking about, their parents are talking about, the whole community changes just by putting that context in. Not rewriting the curriculum, just adding meaningful context.
Agree. Yeah. Anyway, the other one is the aspect of how do you get, what's the way to get the products? What I'm here about is something called eco campaigns to gamify sustainability, and the big difference is getting products that are to the people that really want to. And so I'm curious about a way to know what the green, the green chemistry kind of products are. Is there like a
there are a
standards
handful
or whatever, like how would we know that?
Yeah. So it's interesting. In 1990, again, it's one of the best kept secrets in the world, or worst kept secrets. In 1996, my friends and I, we started the Presidential Green Chemistry Challenge Award. all right? And for the last 30 years, 5 companies receive a green chemistry award from the federal government and the National Academy of Sciences that articulate performance, but also cost and success in the marketplace in the green chemistry. That is an amazing potpourri of knowledge. In 2019, I helped write and I testified to the House and the Senate the Sustainable Chemistry Research and Development Act. Perhaps it was my oratory skills, who knows, but it passed unanimously. All right? It is now a law on the books unanimously because, like everyone keeps saying, this is not a political issue. If you are swayed by the environment, you get it. If you're swayed by economic competitiveness and time to market, you should get it. And that's the key, is to stay out of the politics and just say, the world needs this and everyone benefits, because there's a lot of economic disparities that are causing human suffering too. This, we do both.
Over here. Hi. So speaking of keeping green chemistry out of politics, this
Yes.
question is directly about politics.
Yes, okay.
Especially from the context of I had worked for a number of years on developing the global framework of chemicals with the United Nations, and then also participated in the healthcare sector with the World Health Organization to be able to define the toxic chemicals. And so the curiosity is, as you're working on developing green chemistries, what is the role of policies? Because during this time, the framework of trying to be able to establish a global harmonized system to be able to identify safer chemicals, and as well as how what boundaries does the industries have in order when they are adopting these chemicals for mass production of the products? What is the role of government policies and as well as intergovernmental policies?
Thank you for that question. It's a much longer answer than I should probably do, but I'm very much engaged in a lot of international and different regional policies. My fear and sadness is much policy takes the approach that we need to force industry to do this. And my premise that it hasn't been invented yet, we focus on the few things that have been invented. The whole concept of alternatives assessment and substitution suggests that they exist. And what I feel that, so my model is the Clean Air Act created the need for the catalytic converter. But the catalytic converter was invented 6 years before the Clean Air Act. The Clean Air Act did not cause the invention of a technology, it mandated its use. We need to stop thinking that laws and policies will force companies to invent. It's never going to happen, but it will mandate the use of things that are. So the rate limiting step is the invention. If we can have a whole bunch of technologies out there, instead of saying to industry, don't do this, imagine a world where we say, do this instead. We can't yet because it hasn't been invented. Step one, let's invent them. Then use laws and policies to mandate the transition, because it still is economically difficult to rework manufacturing to change that. So policies can help facilitate the rationalization of investment in reworking the manufacturing. But you can't do it if there's not something to do. So we need to first invent. And right now, to me, the biggest problem is there's 2 or 3 materials that we just keep hearing over and over again. We should use this, we should do this. They're not going to solve the problems. We need a bunch more materials. And that's why the work in the bioeconomy is so critical. But we need to invent things that work better, cost better, and oh, by the way, happen to be then policy can help facilitate. But there are so many examples where bans happen, and ironically, the use goes up. Because a ban always has to have a clause for exceptions. The moment that ban comes up, all the lawyers say, okay, we just got to show that we're the exception. So I have case in case in case, ban happens, use increases. So if a ban happens and an alternative doesn't exist, ban is useless.
And when the ban happens as well, then a black market always appears as well. And a black
Exactly.
market is not subject to the laws and the regulations, so bans can so often be counterproductive.
But yeah, I
Let's see,
would
there's a
love to
question.
talk more about that. There's
Yes.
a lot to do.
Yeah.
I had a similar question, but through a different angle. I think as I heard green chemistry, I was thinking about all of the mainstream conversation around what is safe to use from a consumer standpoint, how people are starting to see like words like PFAS, microplastic, getting concerned, movement politically like MAHA, talking about toxic substances. How do you see green chemistry as a way to bring to the fore better materials, but also start to give an answer to the conversation of what is safe to use at a broad level?
Thank you. So 2 weeks ago, Netflix released a documentary called The Plastics Detox. Okay? I'm in it for like 10 minutes, and I'm talking about, but we can invent better materials. And part of me, I love the movie. I think it's telling people these problems. But in my heart, I just think we're doing the wrong thing when we say to a consumer, you must research. You could buy a product that could hurt you, or you could buy a product that doesn't. And it's your responsibility to figure that out. I think consumers should have the assumption that if something is on the market, it is perfectly safe. All right, and so we need to have repositories. But my problem is that right now the way we communicate risk to society is broken. We focus on ingredients. All right? If you want to know what shampoo to buy, no one's going to tell you what shampoo is safe. They're going to say, avoid these ingredients. All right? Just because one ingredient isn't in a shampoo doesn't make that shampoo safe. All right? And so we need to shift our focus from ingredients to the products themselves. And right now, we're not doing that. And so transparency is, oh, here's a list of ingredients. But I, as a chemist, can tell you, a bunch of perfectly safe ingredients, you put them together in a product, they're not safe necessarily, because there's all kinds of things that they can do in combination. Why don't we test, is the shampoo a carcinogen? Is the shampoo biodegradable? We're looking at the ingredients, and we're communicating to the society all these complicated chemistry when all they really want to know is, can I put the shampoo on my daughter? And we don't tell them that. We tell them, don't buy a shampoo with these ingredients. And that's not serving society. We got to change it.
Hey, John. Back here, right behind.
Oh, hi.
This all speaks to my heart. I'm curious your thoughts on planned obsolescence. That's just where my head goes.
Yeah.
In terms of capital incentive with Apples and Samsungs and planning for, you know.
So let's be at the highest level. The highest level is if a product finds its way in a circular economy and is reused, and it's not creating toxicity, and it's creating jobs. That's not a bad thing, all right? But the problem is that planned obsolescence usually means jettisoning it into a landfill or lighting it on fire as opposed to this. And so the key here is that we get talking about the materials and the molecules and the stuff like that. But again, there's 8 billion people in the world and 5 billion of them are in economic despair. And so part of this equation is to find ways to keep products in a circular economy so that I feel right now, we cannot reduce consumption without causing great economic harm to more than half the world's populations. Sure, wealthy countries can talk about reducing consumption, but we haven't invented the technologies that could support the needs of the world and reduce them. We need to invent technologies so we can reduce consumption. But keeping things in planned obsolescence for economic reasons, that makes my head explode. But the concept from a material perspective shouldn't be the problem. There's economic problems going on with that that's way over my level of knowledge. But yes, we need to, if it's going to be obsolete, those pieces, those molecules should still find their way back into the economy.
We have 3 minutes or so for one or two maybe questions. What do we got?
Hi, my name is Faye Cravache. I work for Wild Coast. We protect the coast and ocean. And I'm going to give you a very direct question. We have terrible problem with waste tires, nothing that nobody knows, but incredible. And we are trying, to get a plan to recycle them. But then all the toxicity of the recycled material, to put it in the floor or to build, bricks to build houses, waterproof, et cetera, can do a lot of things.
Yep.
But how can we find out about this toxicity and how to avoid it?
Exactly. It's an important thing, and I see we have two temporal problems. We can imagine a future where all the products are wonderful and safe and everything like that, but in my mind, that's going to take 4 or 5 decades. So that means for our lifetime, everyone in this room, we're going to be working with products that have hazardous materials. We need to figure out what is that transition? How do we get those molecules out? How do we communicate them? We can't snap our fingers and make everything happen overnight. And the tire industry is one of the most difficult ones, and I'm trying to help as much as I can with that, with the ecological damage, the toxicological damage, but also the safety, the implied safety and the performance of these cars. If they're not stopping when we want them to stop, that's going to cause problems too. So it's a complicated problem, and how we communicate to the world is imperfect at best. We need to do a better job with how we're communicating.
One more question.
Hi.
Hey, John, what a fantastic talk, first of all, and so timely. Just amazing, and its applicability to so many industries is fascinating. In a past life, I was involved with a chemicals company that manufactured PFOA and PFAS, also known as forever chemicals. I'm very curious on your take. There's some of the reasons why green chemistry catches on with companies is either because regulatory standards go up for different regions or countries, or there are class action lawsuits related to health issues, right? Those are the two biggest motivators why companies change. To your first point about it either has to be cost effective and health neutral, otherwise it doesn't work. What have you found can be other motivating factors for companies to start trending towards green chemistry other than these regulatory or legal pressures, right? Is there anything you can enlighten us with?
To hundreds of companies and talked to so many leadership and then the employees. And the thing is, especially in the chemical industry right now, people my age and that have children in their 20s are looking up at mom and dad working in the industry saying, "You're the problem." All right? And if that company starts doing green chemistry and the parents start talking about how they're working to make better products, the relationship between the parents and the children and the ecosystem of humanity around it changes everything. And that tailwind, when you're working in a lab and you're inventing for a company and you know that there's a big purpose other than shareholder value, then all of a sudden, everything changes. And so I feel in my heart, every company gets it. But then they look at their employees, and they say, but our employees don't know how to do it. And that's why beyond benign, in my opinion, is the most important thing we need to do. Can you imagine a day in the future? People ask me, should we be working on solvents? Should we be working on polymers? Should we be working on climate change? And I say, change the way we teach, and then everything we do will get better. Who is so presumptuous to pick the winner? But there are 450,000 people get degrees in chemistry every year, undergraduate, 125,000 master's degrees, 30,000 PhDs globally, and only 1 or 2% of them have a clue what makes molecules toxic. If all of them knew, then you don't have to shout at them to make better products. They would in their heart just know. They have a choice. They could make a safe product, or they could make a toxic product. Most people are going to choose door A, but not if they don't know how.
Thank you, John. We really Appreciate your commitment to this.